All right, let's talk about AI. Specifically, let's talk about why so many AI projects just seem to, well, fizzle out. If you're tired of initiatives that look promising but ultimately go nowhere, you're in the right place. We're going to break down a framework that shows you what's really going on beneath the surface. So, I'm going to start with a statement that might sound a little backwards. We live in a world that's just obsessed with the latest and greatest AI tools, right? But here's the thing. For most organizations, the AI technology itself isn't actually the problem. No, the real problem is getting people to use it. They have an AI adoption problem. It's not about acquiring the tech. It's about weaving it into how people actually work day in and day out. That's where things so often fall apart. And this leads us to a really key idea, the AI adoption illusion. You've probably seen this in action. It's this common trap where an organization is doing a lot of stuff with AI, but none of it is actually creating scalable progress. Does this feel familiar at all? You see countless pilot programs being launched, but they just never seem to scale up. There's this tool-first thinking, where we get the shiny new AI and then we scramble to find a problem for it to solve. So what happens? Interest is through the roof, but actual, real adoption across the company is frustratingly low. The big lesson here is that just adding more AI doesn't automatically create more value. Okay, so to really understand why this illusion is so common, we need a better mental model. And the best one out there is to think of AI adoption like an iceberg. Let's start with the part everyone sees, the tip that's sticking out of the water. We're going to call this the berg. Berg stands for all the visible, tangible actions that companies take. They build solutions. They try to enable their teams with new skills. They talk a big game about reinventing workflows. And they set up governance to manage it all. These are the moves everyone focuses on, simply because they're the most obvious parts of any AI strategy. But as we all know with icebergs, the surface rarely gives you the full picture. These visible actions are definitely necessary, but on their own, they're just not enough. Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If most companies are trying to build, enable, reinvent, and govern, why are so many of these initiatives stalling out or just failing to deliver on their big promises? What are they missing? Well, the answer, of course, isn't on the surface. It lies deep beneath the water. The real story isn't in that visible tip, but in the massive, hidden foundation below. This is the part that quietly decides everything, and we call it ICE. So what is ICE? Well, I is for infrastructure. This is your data quality, your tech platforms, your systems. Can they actually support these solutions reliably and at scale? C is for culture, the human side of the equation. Do people trust the systems? Is there enough psychological safety for them to experiment, to learn, and maybe even to fail? And E is for ethics. These are your guardrails. Are your principles for responsible AI clear enough to build trust and allow you to scale? And this really captures the core idea perfectly. Berg is what gets executed, the visible actions. But ICE represents the hidden conditions that make all of those actions sustainable. Berg is action-oriented. ICE is foundation-oriented. And here's the absolute key. Berg, on its own, will almost always fail. It's the strength of your ICE foundation that quietly decides the final outcome. So we have the full iceberg, the visible berg on top and the hidden ice below. But an iceberg without any direction is really just a hazard. To create real value, you have to know how to steer it. And that requires one more missing discipline. And that direction comes from something that's often completely missing: navigation. This is the crucial skill of matching the right kind of intelligence to the right business problem before you even start building anything. Think of this as your strategic map. Instead of just defaulting to the flashiest new technology, you diagnose the problem first. Is the task super repetitive and based on clear rules? Use automation. Do you need to predict an outcome or classify some data? That's a perfect job for machine learning. Need to draft a report or summarize a long document? That's what generative AI is for. And crucially, does the work depend on high-level judgment and empathy? Well, that's where you keep it human-led. The right fit beats sophistication every single time. Okay, so let's put all of this together into a clear path forward. The main takeaway here is that you can't just focus on one part of this system. You have to manage the entire iceberg. True lasting success really depends on getting three core parts to work in harmony: how you choose your path, how you act on the surface, and how you sustain it all from below. So here it is, the new logic for AI success, broken down into three simple, powerful steps. First, choose wisely with navigation. Match the right intelligence to the problem. Second, act visibly with Berg. Execute the build and the enablement. And third, sustain it all deeply with ICE by making sure your infrastructure, culture, and ethics are rock solid. And that leaves us with one final crucial question for you to think about. When you look at your own organization's AI efforts, are you building on that solid foundation of ICE, or are you just focusing on the visible tip of the iceberg? The answer to that question will determine everything.